F1 on BBC Radio 5 Sports Extra.
Welcome back to Sao Paulo in Brazil, which plays host to the 20th race of the F1 season, and today the final sprint race of 2023. Britain's Lando Norris starts on pole. Alongside him, the three-time champion Max Verstappen, and ahead of us 24 laps around this Interlagos circuit. And calling you through all the action is myself, Harry Benjamin. Alongside me is W Series extraordinaire Alice Powell, and we've also got the BBC Chief F1 writer extraordinaire, we'll go for that as well, Andrew Benson. It was a mighty lap from Lando Norris, Alice, in the sprint shootout early doors, but I suppose the big question that we've been asking ourselves in the build-up to this is, can he keep Verstappen behind him?
Well, I mean...
the pause said it all, didn't it?
The pause has said it all. I would like, unless something happens at turn one, I mean, Perez is starting third, so maybe he might have learnt from Mexico, or maybe he hasn't. Who knows? But this is a circuit where the season average is higher than any other place really for overtakes. You've got the benefit of DRS down into turn one. You've got the benefit of DRS down into turn four as well. So if Lando can get away and somehow break DRS, then potentially, and if Max doesn't get a great start, but it's going to be tough. It is really, really going to be tough for him to hold Supermax behind.
Yeah, well, it's a short run down from pole into turn one as well, where it starts to concertina up as he then plunge down through the centre S's, and then coming round through turn three, and then the straight that leads you to the left-hander of turn four. But it's a driver's favourite, it's a fan favourite. Everybody loves the Interlagos circuit. It has a bit of everything, bit of an old school circuit, anti-clockwise, one of the shortest on the calendar, just over 4.3 kilometres, 2.6 miles, 15 turns, 5 to the right and 10 to the left. And as this is the sprint race, it's only 24 laps. It's essentially roughly a half an hour sprint to the finish. No mandatory pit stops if you find yourself in the pits. It's usually because of an issue. And we're about 700-800 metres above sea level as well. In terms of the standings and how they look, let's bring you up to speed with those. Max Verstappen, of course, having clinched the title already, sits at the top with 491 points to his name. His teammate Sergio Perez has 240 points in second, and that is one of the fights we are watching as we get towards the end of this season, is can he hold on to that second place, because he is only 20 points in front of Lewis Hamilton, who is in third. Carlos Sainz has jumped up to fourth in the standings, and Fernando Alonso rounds out the top five. Lando Norris is in sixth, who starts from P1 for today's sprint. Over in the constructors, once again, they've clinched the title too. Red Bull sit at the top with 731 points. Then, though, it's the battle for second. Mercedes versus Ferrari. 371 points for Mercedes. That's just 22 more than Ferrari. Then come McLaren and Aston Martin, having struggled in the latter part of this season, have tumbled down to fifth in the constructors. At one point they were the second fastest team. Then comes Alpine in sixth, and the battle for seventh is well and truly on between the back markers Williams, AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo and Haas, with just a handful of points between them. And that's actually going to be one of the things to watch, because two AlphaTauris starting in the top 10. Brilliant sprint shootouts, Alice, from Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo, once again showing good form of pace. And then AlphaTauri has steadily improved in this latter half of the season.
Yeah, they've made big gains, should I say, sorry. And also with Ricciardo having that great drive last time out as well, and qualifying in a decent position. So yeah, they've certainly made gains, and they should be pleased in the direction that they're going. But it is quite late on the season now. I'm sure they would have loved to have not had to make these gains. It's the same with any team, really. But yeah, it's a bit late on, but at least for them, certainly they are getting the better results now.
With just a few moments then from getting the formation lap underway, as the grid starts to clear, the mechanics take off the tyre warmers that sit on top of the Pirelli rubber, and Lando Norris sits at the front of the field. He looks into his left-hand mirror before he eventually will pull away. And actually, it's quite an interesting start-finish straight, Alice, isn't it? Because it's not flat, it's on a slight incline. So you've almost got to feather the brake of it to stop you rolling back.
Yeah, I mean, you will get plenty of drivers that will sort of load the clutch by using the brake to try and get a better launch. They'll all have their start procedure. So Lando gets a little bit slow off the grid compared to Verstappen as they start the formation lap now. But yeah, it's an added challenge, say, with slight incline, but it is a short run into turn one. So if you happen to not get the best of starts, you've almost got that in your favour, that those around you can't make their gains. But everybody in the top 10 will be starting on the soft tyre. That includes obviously Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. K-Mag and Hulkenberg have gone for the medium, and then Sargent on the medium. So everyone else is opted for the soft tyre. And track temperatures as well are higher, and air temperature as well compared to the sprint quali.
Well, as they make their way around this track, getting heat into the temperature, let's take you through the grid. It is Lando Norris in the McLaren who starts on pole. Alongside him is Max Verstappen. Sergio Perez is third, George Russell fourth, and Lewis Hamilton round out the top five. Yuki Tsunoda is sixth, ahead of Charles Leclerc in seventh. Daniel Ricciardo is eighth, Carlos Sainz in ninth, and Oscar Piastri rounds out the top 10. The two Hasses of Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hulkenberg are 11th and 12th. Pierre Gasly is 13th in front of the Alfa Romeo of Valtteri Bottas in 14th. Fernando Alonso is in 15th in his Aston Martin, ahead of Esteban Ocon in the Alpine, who will start 16th. Lance Stroll in the other Aston Martin is 17th in front of Zhou Guanyu in the other Alfa Romeo, 18th. And the two Williams of Alex Albon will start 19th, and Logan Sargent 20th and last. Now, at the end of the sprint shootout, there was a big incident, or halfway through the sprint shootout, big incident between Ocon and Alonso coming out of the exit of turn 2. That has been deemed as wholly no fault for either driver. Ocon taking a huge shunt there, a change to the front wing, the left side front suspension, gearbox, rear suspension, rear wing, floor, left side bodywork, all being repaired in time for this race. Alonso also with repairs being done makes the start of this race as well. Ferrari also wants to watch, Alice, slightly further down the field. They've opted to save some soft tyres for the Grand Prix. What are your expectations for them during this sprint race?
Well, they're on the soft tyre. So, as you said, they have saved a soft. They won't be using that new one for this race now, but they'll just want to make gains through. But it will be really, I would say, more of a test session for them to learn a bit more about the soft tyre during this 24 laps. Obviously, it is a sprint, so no one has to pit. There's no mandatory pit stops as the final cars now, Harry, coming to the end of the lap and are lining up on the grid.
Tension starting to rise for those watching on in the garages. The last cars to pull up at the back of the grid then will be the two Williams of Alex Albon and Logan Sargent in 20th and last. And then on the front row, in second, Max Verstappen, but on pole, Lando Norris, as the lights illuminate in the gantry above. Lights out for the sprint, and we are racing in Sao Paulo. It's an even start from the front two, but Verstappen is going to have the inside line on Norris. Verstappen through on Norris as they plunge down through the centre S's. Verstappen takes the lead from Norris, but Norris is sticking with them in third. Russell has managed to make up positions. Then comes Perez and Hamilton. The other Ferrari is right behind them. Aston Martin's Alonso runs out wide on the exit of turn 3 and heads into the grass. This is the sound of Lewis Hamilton, one of the home heroes, having been given honorary citizenship, as Piastri in the other McLaren slides out wide on the exit of turn 4. Hamilton was trying to make a move coming into turn 4, couldn't quite manage it on his teammate, but Verstappen then into turn 1 takes the lead of the sprint in front of Norris. Then comes Russell. That is the top 3.
Yeah, and that is a disaster start for Perez. He got jumped off the line.
Russell's just gone through. Sorry, Alice. Russell's just gone through on Norris as well. He's managed to get him on the inside of turn 8 and 9. So Norris has dropped down from pole to third, and they haven't even reached the end of the lap yet. And this is the sound of Hamilton making gains, coming uphill through Zhangzhou, turn 12, then 13. Then you have the DRS line, which won't be activated yet, to complete the lap as they cross the line. Verstappen, Russell, then comes Norris, then Hamilton, who has a little look down the inside but isn't far enough along to try and make a move. Further back in the pack though, Alonso is trying to make a move in the Aston Martin for 13th position on Nico Hülkenberg's Haas, but Hülkenberg does not move. He stays in front of the Aston Martin for the time being.
Yeah, and I was just saying, Perez had a disaster of a start. He got jumped off the line essentially by, it was George Russell, and then Lewis Hamilton swooped around the outside down at turn 4. So Hamilton actually tried to have a go around the outside of turn 1, but George has got a really good start. He had a bit of a lock-up, and again, not a great getaway for Lando Norris, and then we're just seeing Lewis Hamilton really closing up the back and taking the position around the outside. But Max just got the better launch. It's almost like that second phase of the start. Lando Norris got a little bit of wheel spin, and Max entered turn 1, rolled off the brake as expected because he had his nose in there, forced Lando wide on the dirty stuff, and that was job done for Max Verstappen. But Lando must have made a mistake because Lando was behind him. As now, Perez is coming back at Hamilton.
Absolutely, but Hamilton is making the move and getting... keeping in front of Perez. Hamilton in 4th, Perez in 5th, but Hamilton had that inside line covered off, but both now will have DRS. That's the drag reduction system. A little bit of extra speed in the straight lines as the rear wing flap opens. They both have it. It mitigates the effect. Hamilton stays in 4th, keeps Perez behind him 5th. Leclerc is also right there in the Ferrari in 6th. Tsunoda is 7th, Sainz 8th, Ricciardo 9th, and Piastri the top 10. A reminder, only the top 8 score points in the sprint. 8 points for the win, all the way down to 1 point for 8th, which currently is going to Carlos Sainz. But Verstappen now has a 7.5 gap over George Russell in 2nd, and Norris sliding down to 3rd, stabilising for the time being as Hamilton fights with Perez for 4th.
Yeah, George has got to stay within this DRS. It's so powerful down this main straight. It stretches actually from the final corner, which is turn 15, that last kink left, which actually enters into the pit lane as well. You always see the driver sort of cut over that line there. So George has to stay within that DRS, as actually he just has set the fastest lap of the race.
Here
but he is
Perez
1/10 behind.
On Hamilton, making the move, sweeps round the outside, does Perez into the centre S's with the help of DRS, gets the job done and gets in front, but Hamilton is going to come back at him. Perez won't get DRS on the run now to turn 4. Perez moves to the inside to try and defend from Hamilton, who'll have to sweep round the outside. He has to bail out of it as Perez takes that defensive line, but Leclerc's having a look down the inside of 5. Can the Ferrari man find a way through on the Mercedes? No, he can't. Only one line through the double right-handers of 6 and 7. It's Perez in 4th, Hamilton in 5th, Leclerc 6th.
Yeah, it's Hamilton struggling. He really is, compared to his teammate there, who was just about hanging on to the back of Max Verstappen. But another bit of breathing space there for Lewis. As you said, Leclerc was really hungry to try and make a move. And actually, there's a Hamilton train, isn't there? Because the rest of the cars, they're 6, 5 tenths, 4 tenths separating them. So Leclerc runs slightly wide there, actually on the exit of 12, which won't necessarily hamper him too much, because he will, of course, have DRS as he comes down to finish the lap.
Further up the field though, Norris wants to have a go and retake 2nd place, which he does so into turn 1 with the aid of DRS. Norris, who was on the back foot initially, now back up into 2nd, makes the move on George Russell, but now in the run down to turn 4, Russell will have the DRS. Norris isn't making a move to the inside to defend. He has enough pace to hold on. Norris gets 2nd, Russell 3rd, Verstappen leads by 1.3 seconds. Lap 5 of 24 of this sprint race here in Sao Paulo as we race around this Interlagos circuit. Verstappen, Norris, Russell, Perez, Hamilton, the top 5.
Yeah, I think Russell must have made a small mistake in that final part of the lap, Harry, because he was 7 tenths actually off Max Verstappen coming into that final sector, and then clearly something went wrong because Lando Norris was straight up on the back of him. But he needs to close the gap down, and now that's going to be tough because he hasn't got the benefit of DRS now compared to Max Verstappen. So the gap between Lando and Max Verstappen is edging towards 2 seconds now.
Here's Yuki Tsunoda's radio.
Leclerc is moving under the braking.
Yuki Tsunoda saying Leclerc is moving under braking. Leclerc is currently in 6th in the Ferrari. Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri is 7th as they head into turns 1 and 2. Tsunoda's in a bit of a Ferrari sandwich, really, over the last few points paying positions in this sprint. Alonso is still fighting with a Haas. It's the other one this time of Kevin Magnussen. Magnussen holding firm for the time being, but on the DRS run down to turn 4, they both get it. But Alonso is going to have a nose to the inside. Late on the brakes for Fernando Alonso, sweeps down the inside of Magnussen. Move done. Alonso up into 12th, Magnussen down to 13th. Overall, it's Verstappen who leads. Norris, Russell, Perez, Hamilton, the top 5. Leclerc, Tsunoda, Sainz the top 8, Ricciardo, Piastri the top 10. Then comes Gasly, Magnussen, Alonso, Hülkenberg and Ocon the top 15. Stroll, Bottas, Albon, Zhou and Sargent, the 20 drivers, all still remaining in this race.
Yeah, one thing to bear in mind, of course, is Magnussen and Hülkenberg are on the medium tyre, so those that are around them are on the soft tyre, so hence why they're essentially getting swamped at the moment. Here's Albon.
There's oil coming out the back of Valtteri's car.
Alex Albon reporting oil out the back of Valtteri Bottas's car. That's the Alfa Romeo driver, currently in 17th with Albon a couple of tenths behind him, and oil on the track can make for slippy driving. So Albon straight on the radio with that for further back in the pack. But it now seems to have slightly stabilised, at least in the top 5 positions, all separated by a few seconds. Then there's still a bit of a train behind Lewis Hamilton in 5th. 7 tenths back is Leclerc, then comes Tsunoda and Sainz, all within a few tenths of each other. This is the sound of Oscar Piastri making his way into the double right-hander of turns 6 and 7. Piastri currently down in 10th, staring at the rear of Daniel Ricciardo's AlphaTauri, who in turn is tucked right up behind the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Little bit of a mistake from Piastri as he heads into the left-hander of turn 9. Slight correction, but these corners, it starts to get really quite tight and twisty in that middle sector. Off-camber braking, really difficult to handle these cars in that situation.
Yeah, it is, but Perez now, he's got the gap down to Russell, down to 0.6 of a second. Going to have the benefit of DRS as they're charging down to turn 1. Is he going to look to the inside? Russell covers it, but he's braving it round the outside and move complete. Lovely
stuff from Sergio Perez, who gets up into the top 3 as Russell can only cling on for dear life. But will he get the effect of DRS? He does get it, Perez doesn't. Perez is straight to the inside line to defend. Russell later on the brakes, round the outside of the Mexican. Russell gets back through on Perez. Perez thought he had it done. Not the case. Russell back through and up into 3rd. Fantastic scrap between these two.
Great scrap, but I think Perez is being a bit cautious, after the incident he had in Mexico, and so he should. He really made a mistake at Mexico, but that's the second time now he's sort of lost a position with a Mercedes going round the outside. But the sound you can hear is riding on board as we witness a replay of Perez. George hangs it left, and Perez does a really nice job going round the outside, knew the width of his car this time round. And then we see the replay of George Russell, who you can see, like, Perez thinks about it. He thinks, maybe I should roll off the brake and try and keep there with George, but then goes, actually, it's probably safer that I hang on to the brakes for a little bit longer, as he tries to have another look at George Russell going down into turn 1, but not quite close enough this time round.
He won't, but he'll try and stick with him through the left-hander of turn 3 as the sun shines down on this Interlagos track. No threat of rain for the rest of this weekend. An absolute deluge in yesterday's qualifying session. Storms coming in, not such the case today.
For your awareness, Russell and Perez are fighting behind.
It's okay, man. Let me just focus. I can see.
Norris being told that Russell and Perez are fighting behind, but Norris just wanting to focus on his own race and not hear too much about what's going on behind him. Perez still behind Russell.
Yeah, I mean that's information that Lando didn't really need. He's got mirrors, he can see what's going on. So yeah, continuing to scrap there. And for Perez, he needs to try and make sure he gets his exit out of 12. That's going to be really, really crucial to get the run. He needs to be within about, well, last time it was about 6 tenths to get the move done. And it's about 6 tenths now as they come round into turn 15. DRS flap goes wide open on Perez's car. Is he going to be close enough this time around? George, he dives down the inside. Does he make it stick? He does.
Absolutely sublime from Sergio Perez as the sun beams down on the front nose of that Red Bull. He gets through the centre S's, but like a carbon copy of last time, can George Russell get back through with the aid of the DRS on the straight down to turn 4? No, he cannot. Perez is away and gone and cements that 3rd spot as he tries to chase down Lando Norris. Perez up into 3rd, Russell down to 4th, and this is the sound of how he did it.
Yeah, George didn't even actually really try to defend compared to last time. He's almost just thought, well, you're much quicker than me. Here, go down the inside. He maybe thought actually he can get the cut back a little bit better and try and use the benefit of DRS, but actually he made it easier for Perez to not be under attack going into turn 4, because at last time Perez was on the wrong part of the circuit for turn 2. He made the line a lot tighter, whereas this time it was a lot easier. But the sound you can hear now, we were riding on board with Daniel Ricciardo, who's very close, Harry, to the back of Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, and Tsunoda is reasonably close to the back of the other Ferraris, Charles Leclerc. So the AlphaTauri's a little bit stuck behind the 2 Ferraris. I don't think I'd be saying that sentence too many times this season, certainly not today, but this is the sound of Ricciardo with DRS. Has a little look to the inside of turn 1, but it is not near enough to try and lunge down the inside of Sainz. But can he line things up on the run down to turn 4 as they make their way through the left-hander of turn 3? Sainz has a little bit of a twitch on the rear. Is that going to allow Ricciardo a little bit of an advantage as he shifts up through the gears, but the braking zone arrives and it's not in time for Ricciardo to slide down the inside or try a move. But Ricciardo looking like the stronger, more aggressive driver at this stage of the sprint compared to Sainz in the Ferrari.
Yeah, and we've had this before, haven't we? Ferrari are just struggling really with their pace during the longer runs, and now Oscar Piastri has joined this battle, as well as actually Gasly and Alonso. Alonso has a pretty decent pace as well in his Aston Martin. Of course, he couldn't finish sprint qualifying because he had that clash with Esteban Ocon, who's slightly further behind. He has managed to get past K-Mag as the Hasses are dropping down the pack now. They're currently in 16th, 17th on that medium tyre. But the sound you can hear now is looking back from the Ferrari as Daniel Ricciardo edges closer and closer with the benefit of DRS. He pulls over to defend. Daniel's going to hang it round the outside. Is he brave enough to stick it there? Will there be contact? No, they keep it clean, Harry, but he's made a slight mistake going ever so wide, but I think he's just held on to it.
He was. Ricciardo through then, but on to the run down to turn 4. This time Sainz will get the DRS. Ricciardo moves to the inside to defend that position, but Sainz with DRS gets back through under braking. Fantastic scrap this once again for Ricciardo and Sainz this time around. Sainz back through into 8th, Ricciardo now down to 9th once again. But Ricciardo there showing that he can be in front of this Ferrari, and this is the battle for 8th, which in the sprint is the battle over the final points paying position. Ricciardo lined it up on the main straight coming down into turn 1. Sainz hit that inside and they got oh so close to contact there, but that allowed Ricciardo through, but then he was compromised with his line, didn't get quite enough grip on the exit of 2, and that allowed Sainz with the DRS to get back through. Tsunoda is still just about in touching distance with Charles Leclerc as well. He's within DRS activation. Leclerc 6th, Tsunoda 7th, Sainz 8th, Ricciardo 9th. Ferrari versus AlphaTauri. Here we go again as Alonso has a little look further back on the Alpine. Ricciardo now moves to the outside to try and find a way through on Sainz, coming down into the centre S's. Can't do it. Sainz holds out in front, but this time Ricciardo will be behind on the run down to turn 4. How good an exit can Ricciardo get off the back of turn 3? Alonso has got a fantastic exit as he fights with Pierre Gasly over 11th spot. Gasly holds firm in front, the Alpine in front of the Aston Martin, but it's a poor exit out of 4 for the Gasman, who gets a little bit of a twitch on the rear end. There's almost contact between Alonso's front right and Gasly's rear left as they make their way through the double right-hander of turn 6 and 7, but Gasly holds on to 11th, Alonso in 12th. Ricciardo did not get through on Sainz either, so Sainz 8th, Ricciardo 9th.
I wonder if Alonso will be on the blower complaining that Gasly didn't leave enough room, because he did actually have to go on the green painted section of track over the white line as they headed up there into turn 6. So we'll wait to see if we get that radio message through. But actually at the front, Norris is slowly closing the gap down. It's down to 1.3 seconds now. But I guess that Verstappen is just controlling the race.
Ricciardo's trying it again, round the outside, down through the centre S's. He gets alongside, he gets in front of Sainz, but they'll have a poorer line out through the exit of turn 2. Can Sainz get back through with DRS? Ricciardo aggressive and moves straight to the inside to cover that defensive line off. Piastri in the McLaren is coming into play as well, and once again Sainz gets back through into turn 4 in front of Ricciardo. Sainz 8th, Ricciardo 9th, and Piastri now wants to go at this as well. He's in 10th. It's Verstappen who leads by 1.1 seconds from Norris, then Perez, Russell, Hamilton, the top 5 as Piastri slides down the inside. Late move down the inside of turn 8 on Ricciardo. Piastri catching Ricciardo napping there and making the move. So Ricciardo now down to 10th and having to look in his mirrors because Gasly and Alonso are still right in there.
Yeah, so Ricciardo has been so busy trying to get past Sainz that he compromised himself ever so slightly. As Alonso's taken a brave dive down the inside at turn 12 of Pierre Gasly. Gasly's really struggling through turn 11. He's struggling in that dirty air. So Alonso will have the benefit of DRS, but so will Gasly as they head down into turn 1.
They're both going to have DRS. It's Alonso on the inside. Gasly will have the outside line. He squeezes into the apex. Alonso right on the inside. They both give each other the space. Gasly then has the inside for turn 2, but that gives Alonso better traction out of the corner. Alonso finding the outside onto the curbs, gets the DRS. Lance Stroll is right behind them watching this battle. Gasly on the inside in the run down to turn 4. Who's later on the brakes? There's almost contact as Alonso sweeps round the outside and gets in front of Gasly's Alpine. Alonso up into 11th, Gasly 12th. Stroll watching that battle from behind in 13th is right there as well. It's Verstappen, Norris, Perez, Russell, Hamilton the top 5, Leclerc, Tsunoda, Sainz the top 8. They are your point scorers. Russell reporting how fast the cars are in front of him. Sainz is 8th, Piastri and Ricciardo are the top 10. Alonso, Gasly, Stroll, Ocon, Albon the top 15. Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Bottas, Joe and Sargent 20th and last. All drivers still in this race.
Yeah, we have to make a decision here if we're going to push the high speed or not.
Yes, we are going to push the high speed, Max. I've been telling you for the last 3 laps. Norris is 2.5 tenths quicker than you in 6 and 7.
Always a fun exchange to hear between Max Verstappen and his engineer Gianpiero Lambiase. A great relationship those two have, starting to push the high speed.
Yeah, so that's the higher speed corners, basically. Clearly, there's a bit of miscommunication there. Max thinks that he hasn't been receiving that information to push it on, whereas his engineer clearly thinks that he has. But this battle that we've got here, that you could say stretches from 8th, 9th, 10th, all the way down to, well, let's even include Esteban Ocon in this battle as well. That's down to 14th place. It's fantastic. It's really nice, close, but more importantly, it's clean racing, which is what we like to see.
Absolutely, it's been fantastic, and I think the DRS working in our favour here, just teeing it up nicely, but coming across the line to start lap 17 of 24 for this Brazil Sao Paulo sprint, the last of the sprints in 2023. It was Lando Norris who started on pole position, but into turn 1, Verstappen gaining the lead and has it still in front of Norris. 1.8 seconds the gap. Then comes Perez, a further 7 seconds back in third. Russell and Hamilton, the two Mercedes, round out the top 5. The next closest battle is Leclerc and Tsunoda, and Ricciardo, having lost a couple of positions in his fight with Sainz, has now closed back up to the back of Piastri. 6/10 between those two. Sainz 8th, Piastri 9th, Ricciardo in 10th. But then it's that big scrap that you were talking about, Alex, because Alonso, Gasly, Stroll and Ocon are all well and truly in that fight as well. But Verstappen out in front hasn't been able to drop Norris. He's right there, but you wonder how much is Verstappen managing this.
Well, from his radio message, he sounded like, well, come on guys, we've got to make a decision here. Obviously that was about corners, as one of the AlphaTauris runs ever so slightly wide, and that is Danny Rick, I think, isn't it, going slightly wide, as he's got Alonso that is steadily making his way ever so closer to the rear of his car. But Norris actually, at one point when we had this scrap that we were focusing on between sort of 9th down to 14th, actually got to the gap down to Verstappen at just over 1 second, but the gap's now up to 2 seconds. So Max clearly had some pace there, and he's worked on those higher speed corners and has opened up that gap.
Danny Rick, Daniel Ricciardo then, who got a little bit wobbly coming through the inside of turn 8, still holding on to 10th for now. Lance Stroll is now getting involved in a battle between with Pierre Gasly. Gasly locks up coming down through the centre S's, and that allows Stroll all the time he needs to sweep round the outside of 3, and with DRS starts to pull away from Gasly, who fights back, but nothing he can do. Stroll has the inside line covered coming through the left-hander of turn 4. Stroll up into 12th, Gasly now down to 13th.
Yeah, and he's got his teammate now creeping up on the back of him as Gasly. Ocon with that heavy damage, and you went through the numerous parts that had to be added on to the car, as we're just listening and watching a replay of Lance Stroll on board with Lance Stroll, and Gasly just snatched that front left, and it's combined, I was talking about it yesterday, that combined braking and turning, which makes it so fragile to get these lock-ups, so easy to lock up the unloaded tyre that's on the inside of the corner in the direction you're going, and that's exactly what happened to Gasly as he sailed on past. But this battle between Piastri, Danny Rick, Alonso, Stroll, Gasly, Ocon is still raging.
It's allowed Sainz to get up the road a little bit. He did have Ricciardo for company for a fair few laps, but now Piastri holding up Ricciardo, it seems. Piastri coming through turn 3 now, only 4/10 in front of Ricciardo. In turn has this man you're hearing, Fernando Alonso, right behind him. Alonso not close enough to make a move. Ricciardo, neither is he close enough to make a move on Piastri. They all line astern for the time being. Verstappen leads by nearly 2.5 seconds on lap 19 of 24 in front of Lando Norris. Sergio Perez is third. Russell, Hamilton, the top 5. Then comes Leclerc, Tsunoda and Sainz, the top 8. They are your point scorers in the sprint. Piastri is 9th and involved in this fight that we are focusing on at the moment, with 5 laps to go, with Daniel Ricciardo and Fernando Alonso as he makes his way through the right-hander of turn 8, then the left-hander of turn 9, the long sweeping left-hander which takes you into the braking zone of Zhengzhou. Ricciardo running a little bit deep as they make their way through turns 12 and then up the hill to finish off the lap through turns 13 and 14.
As we're riding on board with Fernando Alonso there, he's being very clever. They're obviously in a train here as Oscar Piastri has to defend from Daniel Ricciardo going down into turn 1. I think he'll just about hold it. Yes, he will. But Alonso's trying to stay out of the dirty air, and he's almost squaring off the corners to try and get a better exit and get the car rotated, which actually really seems to be helping the Aston Martin as he closes up onto the back of Ricciardo. And you cannot separate these top these three drivers, as now Lance Stroll is all over the back of his teammate, of Fernando Alonso, as well. The Alpines are really struggling now to keep up the pace, clearly struggling with tyre degradation on the soft tyre.
Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari in 6th has closed in on Lewis Hamilton in the last couple of laps. He's about 7/10 behind the 7-time champion for 5th place at the moment. So Hamilton then starting to have to look in his mirrors a little bit more, because then the scarlet red Ferrari of Leclerc is awaiting, and Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri is still keeping tabs on them as well. Tsunoda not close enough to try and make a move, but perhaps with DRS Leclerc might be able to make a move on Hamilton. Hamilton has to defend coming down the main straight, and even by the time they get to the braking zone of the centre S's, Leclerc is through in front of Hamilton, but Hamilton is going to try and get on the power early to his detriment. The rear slides out, that allows Tsunoda to get a nose down the inside. Tsunoda's going to get DRS here in the run down to turn 4. Hamilton on the outside. Who's later on the brakes? They both turn in. Tsunoda gets squeezed. Hamilton holds on. Leclerc 5th, Hamilton 6th, Tsunoda 7th.
Yeah, and this battle's not over now. Tsunoda having a little look down into turn 6, thinks better of it, as Hamilton, they're really struggling, these Mercedes. So, for example, Lewis Hamilton, he's in the 117s, whereas even those that are sort of battling with the Alonso-Stroll battle that's going on, they're basically within the 116s. Okay, only just 116.9s. And then you have to go down to Gasly in 13th, who's done a 117 dead. So even Hamilton's even slower than Pierre Gasly, and Gasly hasn't got DRS either. So Hamilton really not happy on this soft tyre as he tries to get on the power on the exit of turn 12, which is surely this is going to be slam dunk for Yuki Tsunoda sailing past.
This is the sound of the Japanese racer for AlphaTauri, up through the gears onto the main straight with DRS, and he glides by Lewis Hamilton to make that move. His teammate also gliding by Oscar Piastri down into turn 1, the two Australians dicing, but Ricciardo making it look easy this time around. So the AlphaTauri's making gains. Tsunoda up into 6th, Hamilton down to 7th, Ricciardo back into 9th, Piastri down to 10th. Can Piastri try and close up in the run down to turn 4? No, he's not close enough. Verstappen leads 2.8 seconds. Norris is 2nd, Perez 3rd, Russell, Leclerc now the top 5. Then comes Tsunoda, Hamilton, Sainz the top 8. They are your point scorers. Then it's Ricciardo, Piastri the top 10. Alonso, Stroll, Gasly, Ocon, Albon the top 15, Magnussen, Hulkenberg, Bottas, Joe and Sargent, the 20 drivers still left in this sprint with only a couple of laps remaining.
Yeah, and it's Norris, unfortunately. He's just lost a little bit of consistency on these last sort of 5 laps or so. Giving you an example, his previous 2 laps ago, he did a 114.9. This last lap, a 115.6, and it keeps fluctuating, and that's just struggling with tyre degradation. The gap now up to 3.1 seconds, and yeah, it seems as well Oscar Piastri is struggling a little bit as well, as he was sort of, you could say, had the legs on Daniel Ricciardo, but he certainly doesn't now, as he's coming under all sorts of bother with Fernando Alonso's really closed the gap down to him 0.4 of a second, and the sound you can hear now is riding on board with Fernando Alonso, and that previous lap was 0.8 quicker than Piastri. He sails down into turn 4, DRS wide open, not quite close enough.
No, little glance into his left mirror for Fernando Alonso, just keeping an eye on where his teammate is, Lance Stroll. That's the man who's behind him, just half a second. The two Aston Martins running toe-to-toe in 11th and 12th. Then there's a bit of a gap back to the two Alpines of Gasly and Ocon, as Max Verstappen starts the final lap with a gap of 3.5 seconds in his favour over the man who started this sprint on pole, Lando Norris. Perez currently rounding out the top 3. We're focusing on that battle for 10th. No points at the moment up for grabs. Piastri getting a bit of a swapper on the rear end of the McLaren as he came out of the right-hander of turn 8, and again coming uphill out of turn 12. DRS will come for Fernando Alonso. Can the Spaniard make the move down through the centre S's. The rear wing flat flies open on the green Aston Martin, chasing the papaya colours of the McLaren. Can he get close enough? He does dive down the inside. Piastri sees it coming. Piastri tries to cut back, and he does so. They give each other the room, and Piastri manages to get back in front of Alonso at the exit of turn 2. But now comes the run down to turn 4. Piastri moves to the inside, then moves to the racing line and blocks off any kind of attack from Alonso.
That was really clever stuff from Piastri. He saw Fernando coming and thought, yeah, I'm braking late, which means you've got to brake even later. He sort of sailed through the corner, and yeah, he wasn't able to pass.
But after all that, the final sprint of the season goes to Max Verstappen, who crosses the line and wins the Sao Paulo sprint. Lando Norris comes home in second, and Sergio Perez will round out the top 3 as the celebrations continue in the Red Bull garage. Another sublime performance from our 2023 champion, but the battles are not done yet. Yuki Tsunoda all over the back of Charles Leclerc, and Daniel Ricciardo all over the back of Carlos Sainz in the final corner. Ricciardo's going to get the DRS. Can he get Leclerc on the line? No, he can't. He manages just to stay behind Sainz. Russell comes home in 4th. Leclerc then the top 5. Tsunoda 6th. Hamilton 7th. Sainz clings on for that final point in 8th. Ricciardo in 9th. Piastri rounds out the top 10. And just like that, Alice, the final sprint is done, and let's hear from the winner of it.
And that was some fun. Nice job.
Yeah, good race. I think we executed that well. Much better than last year.
Yeah, well done, Max. That's a great start to the weekend. Well done. A lot of good information there.
Yeah, good job by Max. He got the job done at the start, really. He needed to try and jump Lando at the first corner, and he certainly did that with that short run down into turn 1. And Christian Horner there, as we hear from Lando.
That's bit you.
Yeah, I know. Just didn't have the pace in the end. Too much there comparing to him, but good effort.
Yeah, good job, man.
And yeah, Christian Horner saying lots of information gathered there, and that will be across all teams. But Lando's right. Too much deg in the end there. It certainly wouldn't have helped following the dirty air of Max Verstappen, but he'll be kicking himself, I feel, Lando. He does the job, but then just doesn't have that final, but doesn't quite get a good start and drop down the field ever so slightly. So he'll be disappointed, and that'll be something that he needs to look at, of course, moving forward.
Well, the music blares out once again for Max Verstappen, who pulls into Parc Fermé. The steering wheel flies out as he clambers out of that Red Bull cockpit. The sun glinting off of the blue and gold helmets, and a wave to the grandstand, and the cheers back at Verstappen. A fairly faultless and well executed drive. He heads straight over to his teammate Sergio Perez, who he gives a congratulations to, and they go to be weighed. But this, I suppose, is merely the taster for what might be to come for the Grand Prix on Sunday. Another good set of points for AlphaTauri to pick up. They picked up 3 points thanks to Yuki Tsunoda's drive to 6th place, so they close in on Williams for 7th in the Constructors' title, and Lando Norris with that 2nd place finish gets well and truly in the fight for the top 5 in the drivers' standings with Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso. So considering where McLaren started the season, what a difference a year can make for the McLaren team, who celebrate. Frustration then for the likes of Daniel Ricciardo and Oscar Piastri, just finishing outside of the points, and Lewis Hamilton, who walks forlornly in his Senna-tributed and inspired helmet design, fading back in that last couple of laps. Here's Naomi Schiff, though, with our winner.
Checo, congratulations on 3rd place for you today. We saw some really nice battles out there between you and George. How was the race from your perspective?
Yeah, it was not an easy one. I had a terrible start. end up losing a place to George, and then another place to Lewis into turn 4, and then from then on I was fighting. I had to use a lot of my tires, and then I think I paid the price towards the end. And overall it's been a good day, good points there, but unfortunately I think without the start we could have been a lot further up.
We had a lot of interaction on the radio between Max and GP about tyre deg and maintaining the tyres. Were you dealing with that a lot in the car as well? And as you said, those battles didn't allow you really to not push as much as you would need to.
Yeah, the problem I had is that I couldn't manage. I had to push, and we know that this place is very sensitive for that. So I ended up pushing a lot, and unfortunately, there in the end, it ended up costing us.
Well, you scored 6 points there. Lewis only scored 1. That gives you 5 points more in the buffer between the two of you. How important is that for you?
Obviously, it's important, but it's more important, to keep the momentum going now. We had very, very good day overall, and hopefully tomorrow, which is the main race, we can consolidate on a strong result.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
That was Sergio Perez, P3 man, speaking to Naomi Schiff. First time he's finished in the top 3 in any race format since Monza several race weekends ago.
Unfortunately, not the win you would have wanted to have today, but it's still a second place. What happened off the line, though? It seems like reaction times initially were pretty decent, and then at the end, Max just seemed to have more power.
No, he doesn't have more power. I think I have more power, but I don't know. I have to review it. It's something to look back onto. Like you said, my initial start was good, but the second phase of the launch, maybe I was just a bit conservative. I don't think I had any wheel spin. I was just a little bit on the safe side. So things to improve for tomorrow. But nevertheless, caught sleeping a little bit with George on lap 1. But the pace was strong after, and I tried to go after Max, but just didn't have enough. But it was good fun.
You say the pace was strong, but it seemed that Max was managing quite a lot initially when you were in striking distance, and then at the end he pulled quite a big gap. Does that make you a little bit more concerned for tomorrow? You've got to fight back from 7th, I believe it is. So 6th it is. Does that concern you for tomorrow, or what did you feel about your race pace compared to those around you?
There was no one around me apart from Max, and he's in a Red Bull, so I know I'm not concerned. If anything, encouraged a lot with how good our pace was today. We're not fighting necessarily Max. I think we're talking about competing against one of the best drivers in one of the best cars that's ever been in Formula 1. We're not going to suddenly be fighting a Red Bull in a track which we almost didn't expect to be as good as it has been again. So many good surprises and a lot of positives for us. Of course, tomorrow I'll try again, but have to do a bit more overtaking.
Tomorrow's another day. Maybe we'll see another Mexico drive from 6th place.
I'll try.
Good luck.
Thank you. Cheers.
And the P2 man, Lando Norris, speaking to Naomi Schiff once again. Just didn't quite have enough.
Congratulations. That's another victory this season for a sprint race. How was it out there for you?
Yeah, I think it was, of course, important to try and get ahead at the start. I think the initial launch wasn't, let's say, amazing, but the second part of the start was very good. So we got alongside. And then it was all about management. Here, this track, there's a lot of deck. The tires are wearing a lot. So 24 laps on one tire set is very long. So it's just trying to maintain a constant lap time. And I think we managed the race quite well out there today.
Were you surprised to see, though, how much deck there was? Because there was quite a bit of conversation between you and your engineer. We were surprised to see the whole grid. Majority of the whole grid was on softs. And then for you all, or most of you, to be managing, was that a bit of a surprise or expected?
No, last year was very difficult for us around here. So today was much better, but yeah, it's still I think for everyone out there, you can't push flat out. It's all about just keeping the tires under control, and I think we did that well today.
Well, tomorrow's another day. Are you encouraged by your pace today for a potential victory tomorrow in front of a crowd that you like to visit quite a lot?
Yeah, it's a great start. I think we learned a lot during that race, and hopefully we can do something similar tomorrow.
Fantastic. Good luck. Thank you.
And your final sprint race winner of the season, Max Verstappen there. Is that a precursor of what's to come for the Grand Prix tomorrow? We shall wait and see. The action gets going from 4:45 on 5 Sports Extra, so do join us for that. But the final sprint done and dusted. Verstappen, the winner of it. My thanks to the BBC Chief F1 writer Andrew Benson, to racing driver Alice Powell. I've been Harry Benjamin. We will be here for all the Grand Prix coverage for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. 4:45 Sports Extra. This has been an ING production for BBC Radio 5 Live.